Welcome into Who Da Man here on ProBox TV. What are we discussing today? Entertainment value, right? We love technique, we love offense, we love defense, but it's about butts in seats. Got a limited amount of money on the weekend. Where are you putting your pay-per-view dollars? It's about entertainment value. Fortunately, I have the entertaining fighters to help me out with this discussion. Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, and Showtime Sean Porter joining us via Zoom. We're going to start out with the lighter weights. We have Naoya Inoue, Gervonta, Tank Davis. Paulie, right now, when you look at Gervonta Davis, the year he's had off since Ryan Garcia, that was April of last year. When we talk about, box office, when we talk about pound for pound greatness, he should be near the top of the list. We haven't mentioned him in a year. Has that hurt his marketability, his viability? Right now, he's fighting in 2 weeks.
I don't know if he should be at the top of the list, but he has the potential to be there for sure. Usually when a fighter of this caliber is not active, they're typically complaining and they're saying, hey, man, I should be there. I should be at the top of the list. I should be able to show my skill set on a more regular basis. Doesn't really seem like Gervonta Davis cares, though. So if it's not important to Gervonta Davis, then why should we have the argument about how much higher Gervonta Davis belongs on the pound-for-pound list? In my opinion, Gervonta Davis has the potential to do all of the things that people talk about him, regard him as, but he's not active enough, and I don't really see him caring to be. But I'm looking forward to his fight with Frank Martin, I'll tell you that.
All right, so Chris, when we talk about Naoya Inoue, it's kind of like, as fight dorks, it's almost like watching Mozart. He's unbelievable, can do everything. But what Gervonta Davis has is that one-shot power. It's easy for fans to connect with a guy like that. He's from the right country. When you look at these two fighters, when it comes to entertainment value in the U.S., I have pay-per-view dollars. Who do you spend it on and why?
I mean, for me, it's Inoue, man. He's so much fun, not just because he's super technical and does everything right by the textbook, fundamentally super sound. He wants to be entertaining. He wants to get knockouts. He pushes the action. He looks to damage guys. He wants to hurt you. He just does it in a more clinical fashion than some of the other guys. And he's busy. I like a busy fighter. Yes, he's a smaller guy. I know a lot of us American fans don't love to watch the small guys bang it out. But, I mean, Gervonta's not that much bigger than him, so yes, he's a smaller guy, but he's so tactical, he's so clinical, he gets the KO, he doesn't mind getting hit, he doesn't mind putting himself in danger, and he speaks about that quite a bit. Japanese fighters were warriors, this is the way that we fight. So I appreciate his style, even though, he's a very technical and smaller guy. And, he's from Japan, he's not American, but I mean, I still like him.
Right, but Paul, when you look at that, this is a guy who hasn't gone the distance since Donaire in 2019.
And that was
right?
an awesome fight. That was an awesome fight.
And that was an awesome fight. So do you think that's, lighter weight guys, dude, he's knocking guys out. Do you think that lighter weight class, it's kind of a cop-out for a lot of people?
Yeah, in some ways. I mean, maybe people just don't pay attention to it as much because they're not as familiar. It doesn't get as much play or airplay as some of the bigger weight classes. But, yeah, I agree with the champ, man. I think Inoue is must-see TV every time he fights, And also, I don't know if he's as clinical as you describe him as either, though, champ, because he's defensively kind of irresponsible at times. He got dropped his last fight. He's going to get into an area now where it's going to become a little bit gray, where you've gone up so many weight classes that these shots you might take on your way in might hurt you, and so you got to be more careful. He wound up on his ass in the last fight.
Right, so Showtime, what's your thought on this? Two guys who, not only are they hard punchers, not only knock guys out, but also technical. They're very, very fast, very, very accurate. What's your thought on these two fighters and their popularity to the American fight fan?
Yeah, I think one thing that really gets people to tune into boxing is you get intrigued by matchups. When you have two fighters specifically that have been so dominant, like a Tank and a Inoue, now the thing becomes, how long is this fight gonna last? How's this fight gonna look? Is this guy gonna be able to challenge Inoue, Tank? And so I think for a lot of reasons, people still tune in to see both these guys because they know it's gonna be electric the entire way. Even when it's a Tank Davis losing a couple of rounds until the knockout, it's still on the edge of your seat because you know what he can do. And the same thing with Inoue, getting dropped in his last fight. That became great to me because it was like, all right, now we're going to see who he is after this knockdown. And so, one thing that people have when these guys get in the rings, they have questions. These two guys specifically, they always answer it correctly, and not only correctly, but with a big bang.
Is there a little bit of that amongst the elite? Chris, I'm going to ask you. I was just watching a documentary, kind of funny, on Mick Foley. Remember, the wrestler got thrown off the cage, right? Thrown off Hell in a Cell, went like 20 feet. Everybody in the locker room went, what do we have to do now? Right, there's almost this one-upsmanship of he took that bump, now I gotta land on thumbtacks off the roof, right? Is there a similar thing with these kind of boxers?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Look at our top 3 pound for pound right now. We've got Usyk, Crawford, Inoue. All of them were splitting hairs. Whenever one fights, they go to the top of the list, and so they're constantly one-upping each other, which is great because it's upping the sport in general. So now you're getting so many eyes looking at the best fighters in the world. I mean, especially with those 3 guys, they're all across the board. Right. We have the lighter weights, we have the middle weights, and then we have the heavyweight. And they're all from different parts of the world. Like, it's a really fun time in boxing right now where you've got guys who are so good, all 3 are undefeated as well. So they're trying to one-up each other all the time. Tank is a guy who's not busy, but man, whenever he fights, everyone's tuned in.
Yeah, that
Chris,
must. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the interesting thing about Terence, he's always out of those guys. He's the only guy who I believe has consistently showed flaws in the beginning of a fight and then showed to be flawless at the end of a fight. And to me, like, that's remarkable. I think of anybody I'd want to pay to see right now would be Terence Crawford.
Yeah, but is it that, Paulie, that idea? We talked about Inoue getting dropped first round against Luis Neri, a guy that we thought he'd kind of wipe out, got dropped in the first round. There's a little bit of drama there. Does that add to the excitement? Does it make it more, I don't know, endearing to American fans, that little bit of vulnerability? Yes or no?
Different strokes for different folks. Some people like the cerebral aspect of it. Some people like the face-first aspect of it. Some people like the, dramatics of getting up off the canvas like a Hollywood movie. It's different strokes for different folks, honestly. Depends on what kind of narrative you're trying to spin, I guess. And everybody wants to, depends on everybody's taste. The narrative changes and can be different. But I think all 3 of these guys, or these 2 guys we're talking about here with Gervonta and Inoue, specifically being that they're the guys at the topic of the conversation, I think they bring an element of cerebral boxing, an element of power boxing, obviously, and the excitement factor. It's all there, really. So, you can spin it any way you want, but I think they bring it to the table. The only difference is one's very, very active and one's not active enough. I'm looking at that highlight we were just playing. I shouldn't have to look at Gervonta Davis against a 40-year-old to find. You shouldn't have to really you shouldn't have to scrape that deeply to find a highlight reel of a guy if he's that good. Yeah. Why is it few and far between are the matchups with him? When he was put at his level with a guy like Pitbull Cruz, the fight went the distance. Yeah. The fight went the distance. So like, if we are, is this a matchup thing or is this a levels thing?
Showtime, Paulie, it's legal clearance. All right, they couldn't get legal clearance.
Okay, sure, that's a good point too. But I'll tell you what, the only other highlights you have here, as far as name recognition, right? The name fighters that really stand out to me. Ryan Garcia. Do we call him weight drain Ryan Garcia? 135?
Sure.
Possibly, right? I mean, I think it's clear he was weight drained in that fight, but nonetheless, it's a good win. Pedraza, I know was weight drained because I remember him complaining about making 130 pounds fights before, and I was working at Showtime at that time. Then you have Pitbull Cruz, and you have
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz, yeah.
Santa Cruz, way smaller.
I don't even count Santa Cruz. The guy's a freaking ex-bantamweight. Don't give me the Santa Cruz knockout. Don't give me the Santa Cruz knockout for Gervonta Davis. That's not a highlight for me. Okay, I'll give you the Pitbull win, even the Rolly win, because he was losing and he came back and knocks out Rolly. Frank Martin is a big fight for me. You know what I mean? Because Frank Martin's quality in a lot of ways. I want to see people prove this level that we put them on.
Well, we'll see if we can settle the debate in 2 weeks. One thing that is not a debate is at the center of the boxing universe, Eastern Europe. We'll get to a couple of those fighters when we come back. Welcome back to Who Da Man here on ProBox TV. We're discussing the entertainment value, who's putting butts in seats, who is selling pay-per-views, and we're right now taking a visit to Eastern Europe. Oleksandr Usyk, of course, the undisputed heavyweight champion, right now #1 on most pound-for-pound lists, and another Eastern European, Artur Beterbiev, 20-0, 20 knockouts. Gentlemen, both these guys have the same problem. They're from the same area. I don't know how much American fans resonate with them, but they have an opposite problem, which is Usyk, a technical boxer. Yeah, we saw his power on display against Fury. That is comparatively rare. He outboxes guys. Beterbiev, as we say, hits like you stole something from him. It's a simple style. I'm not saying he's a bad boxer, but he hits you, he drops you, he takes you out. You don't have your Ivan Drago hat on today, Paulie. I'm a little disappointed, but a similar kind of vibe from Beterbiev, am I wrong?
Yeah, he does have that. Though stoic, doesn't really talk much. When he talks, you're kind of dumbfounded, and when he hits you, you're dumbfounded too. And I think we've seen a lot of guys in that position. And honestly, I think the fact that he's from Eastern Europe has maybe hurt his marketability a little bit in that he's not gotten the airplay he may have gotten otherwise. I mean, this guy knocks everyone out cold. I mean, he's been dominant. Nobody really jumps out to try to fight him because, again, there's not enough money on the table to take such a risk against a guy who can both hurt you and kill your brand. I mean, because when he's knocking you out, he's making highlight reels out of all of you, you know? So nobody wants to wind up on his highlight reel. It's a brand killer in today's day and age. So, you know, I feel like he's been a guy who probably will never be appreciated the way he could have.
Showtime, what I'm curious about, when I say entertainment value and you know, what the average fan will pay for, what I think is, who would I show a non-boxing fan to make them a fan, right? Who would I say, hey, man, show me some boxing, make me a fan? Beterbiev has to be high on that list. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I mean, he could be high on the list. You know, he's a stalker. He's not very fast, but when he hits hard. I've seen him in the ring with guys who can make him miss for a number of rounds before he finally catches up with them. I like the thought of showing a boxing fan or someone who isn't a boxing fan. I like the thought of showing them maybe even Oleksandr Usyk. With Usyk, you get high work rate, you get a lot of boxing. You can even break down what he's doing, why he's doing it. You know, he may not be leaning guys the way we talk about Artur Beterbiev doing it, but he does what he does so beautifully well. And especially with that fight that he had against Tyson Fury. I mean, that was a 50-50 fight, ended up being a 50-50, close to 50-50 at the end. I would say Oleksandr Usyk, if I wanted to show someone who isn't a boxing fan, or Terence Crawford. I think those two are the two guys that I would lean towards.
Oh, you see what jumps off the page here. 20-0, 20 knockouts, 39 years old, getting on there despite not having a ton of pro fights. Chris, help us settle this debate here. When I talk about Oleksandr Usyk, everybody wants the one-hit wonder, the Mike Tyson. Oh my God, he lays you out. He's not that kind of heavyweight. Guys like us sitting at this table, we appreciate him. Do you think the average fan sees how great he really is?
Well, first of all, I want to tip my hat to production directors. You guys did a great job putting these two fighters together, because I think a lot of the intrigue for both these guys is like, wait, how long are they going to do this for? They're both undefeated. They're both keeping a streak alive. Usyk is a guy, he just wins everything. He wins. Doesn't matter where he goes, but he's an underdog. People love that about him.
He didn't win when he went to Chicago in 2007.
Well, that's because he was fighting Sean Porter. Good one, Sean. And then Beterbiev, it's like, all right, the knockout streak. Is that thing really going to stay alive? Is this real? We 20-0 fighting world-class fighters and still knocking everyone out? So both of these guys have a streak that keeps alive. That brings a lot of intrigue to them. Yes, Beterbiev. The guy's a monster. He looks like a bad guy from a movie villain. He's a movie villain. You know, he comes forward, he's knocking you out, he's putting pressure on, doesn't care what's happening during the rounds. He could be losing rounds, doesn't matter. He's coming to knock you out, and that is the end mission. Usyk, I'm finding a way to win, baby. He's the underdog. A lot of times he's a smaller guy, especially at heavyweight. Finds a way to win. So both these guys are super intriguing in their styles, even though they're very opposite, but they do also have a lot in common in terms of everyone wants to see when this train's going to end.
Beterbiev is like a Friday the 13th movie, because even if you get him down, he just gets right back up, and he's stalking you again.
And Sean, you mentioned how he's slow. Jason was like slow, right? He was super slow, but he caught everybody. That's Beterbiev too. He's slow, but he still catches you.
Whenever you trip and fall down, it's done. Beterbiev's got you. But Paul, when you look at it, you know, we all at this table grew up watching Vander Holyfield, undersized, right? Heavyweight, ended up being world champion. Michael Moore, undersized heavyweight, ended up being world champion. When you look at that, is Usyk in that model of blown up light heavyweight, blown up cruiserweight, a guy who's a little bit smaller, but his heart and a technique make up for it? Is he in that mold to you, Paul?
He's a little bit smaller, but Usyk was a big cruiserweight. Usyk, one of the bigger cruiserweights I've ever seen. It's just the problem is the heavyweights are also bigger.
Have gotten so much bigger.
So it was kind of the same kind of dilemma. I'll be honest with you, though. Sean also brought up Terence Crawford. I'll tell you what. There are good fighters that are businessmen that, you know, will play against the top level, but they'll maneuver and pick and choose, right? And then there are guys that just take on or want to take on the best, but the best will don't want to take them on. And I feel like guys like Terence Crawford are in that. He was in that position for a long time in the welterweight division. He's the West's answer to the Easterners. The reason a few years ago that I got in trouble of saying all the Easterners are going to take over is because they wanted all the smoke. The top Eastern fighters are not looking to be businessmen. They want, who's the best guy in my weight class? I want him. Who's the best guy in my weight class? I want him.
And early in their career, too.
And you know it because they're out, and it's they themselves who aren't able to lock those fights in because the other guys avoid them. I mean, I can remember Golovkin being criticized. Who does Golovkin fight? Nobody wanted to fight Golovkin. Nobody wanted to go near Golovkin. Okay, so when you've got a Westerner like Terence Crawford, I'll put another guy in that leagues. I think Shakur Stevenson is in the mold of Terence Crawford. He wants all the smoke with everybody, and is having a hard time getting everybody in there. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily have to be the big puncher to scare everybody away. I feel like the West's answer to these top Eastern fighters, like Naoya Inoue is another one, where who's got all the smoke? Who's the baddest guy? I want him.
He's fighting the best guy in every division. He comes to a new division, goes right to the best guy.
These top Easterners do that consistently. Lomachenko came out doing that. Usyk does that consistently. Beterbiev looks for that consistently. They're not always able to acquire them because people avoid them, but they want them. Golovkin was looking for that constantly. The West's answer to that is Shakur Stevenson and Terence Crawford, in my eyes. Everybody else, just looking to be a businessman. Good fighters, but you're still looking to be a businessman, and your moves prove it.
Yeah, and one thing about Usyk, and Chris, you and I ran into this when we were talking about heavyweight division, and Usyk, small heavyweight. Everyone putting out, Muhammad Ali was 6'3". Yes, that was boxing 50 years ago. Yeah. How has it changed in terms of how big heavyweights are supposed to be?
Athletes in general are getting bigger. Look at LeBron James. Like it's a different version of man at this point. Like these guys are just getting bigger, and the fight game's no different. We're athletes as well. Heavyweights now, we've entered the super heavyweight era. These guys who were 270, 280. This weekend, we've got Zhilei Zhang. That guy's 280. 280. 6'6", 280. And I actually went to the gym to watch him train this thing. He's athletic, too. I watched him moving around. I'm like, I didn't realize he could move like this. Holy cow. These guys are different kinds of athletes now. So, yes, Usyk, small for this modern-day era, but like you said, Muhammad Ali, same size. 6'3" for a cruiserweight's big.
Cruiserweights are smaller back then.
He was a big cruiserweight.
Yeah, everybody was smaller.
You didn't have cruiserweights back then. You had Bob Foster coming up from light heavyweight.
Cruiserweights now are what heavyweights were back then. Right. So, yeah, it's definitely a different era, but, I mean, exciting nonetheless. And I mean, we're making all these great matches. All these guys are coming for it. You're getting these guys who want these fights early. Like you said, champ, they want the smoke. These guys want it immediately, and that's what I like, man. I always said that. If I'm in a weight class, I want the best guy in the weight class. I want to be a real world champion.
Everybody's like that. That's why the special guys do.
Now, what about the ones maybe running from those guys? Does it elevate a fighter when somebody else won't fight you? That's how we're talking about David Benavidez when we come back. Welcome back to Who the Man here on ProBox TV. We're discussing the fighters that put butts in seats that sell pay-per-views. Who would you buy a ticket for if you only had one ticket to buy? We have now moved on to, 168. And we're not talking about the 168-pounder maybe you think we're going to talk about, but David Benavidez. That's right. My question for you, Paulie, I know you love talking about the subject. Why I got to go to you. But this idea that Benavidez, Canelo saying, I won't fight him for less than $150 million. Does it elevate Benavidez? He's just being talked about a lot in the boxing world because of who won't fight him. Does it elevate him in the eyes of fans? Tell me about it.
I think nothing would elevate a fighter more than to stay active and stay fighting and get the biggest names possible. But yes, Benavidez is in that position as well. And I tell you what, another guy in that position, in that same weight class, is David Morrell. Right. Benavidez and Morrell are in that weight class. And the reason I didn't mention Benavidez among those other crazy Easterners and mentioning him as one of the West's answers to those Easterners is because Benavidez could fight Morrell. Granted, it wouldn't make dollars and cents because you're chasing Canelo, but those crazy Easterners, they do those kind of things. You know what I mean? Like they'll go and fight each other too if they have to. So I don't think it makes it any more right that Canelo blatantly abducts him and avoids him. The masses should be more educated than to defend that kind of thing. When they don't, then they deserve the non-entertaining fights that boxing gives them. But when you do it right, yeah, I mean, you're the boogeyman. You're the boogeyman, but you still got to, somebody needs to let you in the room. And right now, Benavidez and Morrell are both kind of on the outside looking in, despite their profile growing, despite their being looked at like, wow, that's the boogeyman. Nobody wants to find out just how big and bad the boogeyman is. Nobody wants to take him on.
Chris, is that what is holding Benavidez back to you? Is that, once again, the big-name super fight dance partner, that breakthrough kind of dance partner? Is that what holding a guy who has 28 wins, 24 knockouts, is that what is holding him back from that kind of stardom we're talking about on the show?
Listen, that's keeping him back from being at the absolute top, of course. Yes. But he's doing the right thing. He's fighting the fights. He stays busy. He fought Demetrius Andrade, another avoided guy for a very long time, and he dismantles him, knocks him out, does something that no one's been able to do. He fought Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant's a tough guy to look great against him. He moved up in weight to fight Volostik. Volostik is a great record, only guy to really give Beterbiev trouble up until this point. He's going right at him at a higher weight class. So at least he's staying busy. He's not one of those guys who's going to sit out and not fight. To your point, champ, yeah, he's not fighting David Morrell. Definitely could have made that fight happen. And I actually said, I was like, that would have been a really good move for him to go and try and fight him.
But I'll tell you what. No, I'll tell you why it wouldn't have been a great move, and I'll tell you why. If you could get the winner to guarantee the shot at Canelo, I bet you Morrell and Benavidez would have fought each other. I bet you that fight would have happened. But because they could fight each other, and then this guy would still avoid the winner, makes it not even worthwhile. And that's what I'm saying. Is the trickle-down effect of the ducking epidemic that we have, this ducking epidemic, trickles down all the way down.
But to my point,
kills the sport.
it keeps David Benavidez busy, and it keeps him out there. And yeah, guys like us talking about, like, wow, he's not fighting Canelo. Yeah, people are still talking to him. To your point, Jimmy, and I think that makes a lot of sense. If a guy like David Morrell, listen, he's got to do it in the ring, because what we're talking about right now is excitement, right? This is the show about excitement. The guy is extremely exciting whenever he fights. He needs to stay busy. He needs to stay in the ring. He always puts on a show, throws a ton of punches, gets knockouts. Comes forward. I mean, I'm a big fan of his style, I like the way he fights, and I think he's going to be around for a long time.
Showtime, do you think he breaks through very, very soon? What's your thought on David Benavidez and his excitement level for the average fan?
I hope he breaks through. I think the right platform, Prime. I think that even though he's fighting Eastern European, to fight this Eastern European on Prime, if he gets a big fight, big knockout, the way we've seen him in the past, I think that then kind of takes him to another level that the only thing that could get him to that level is Canelo Alvarez. I think this network could potentially help him get where he's trying to go. The only other way to get there is through Canelo Alvarez. So I think he gets there. And I think that if he has an electric fight in a couple of weeks from now, he gets there.
But Sean, the marketing is important for that too, because we're not hearing a lot about this fight.
We're not.
I'm talking.
It's not a main event.
But it doesn't matter. I'm talking about how good Vosdik is and who he was, and you don't hear that anywhere else. No one talks about how Vosdik gave Beterbiev hell for 8 rounds before he gets stopped. His only loss. Yeah. And the guy is, sure, he's been out of the ring for a while, but he's got a sterling record. He's got a dangerous style. Our own Teddy Atlas says he's gonna upset David Benavidez. So
but that's a little bit of a bias, because
that's a little bias.
He's trained Vosdik.
But this is marketing, guys. Why not get more attention to David Benavidez right now? We're barely hearing about it. The fight's in 2 weeks.
Well, how can we give attention to the fighters we like? By making our picks. We got one ticket, only buy one. Who are you buying it for? My panel tells us right after this. Welcome back to Who the Man here on ProBox TV. Well, you got one ticket, one opportunity to see one fighter, the most entertaining one you can spend your money on. We went over the names. Paulie, who was your pick?
You know, I don't know. Outside the box, it's probably Naoya Inoue. You know, he's the guy we don't see here in the U.S. You hear a lot about him.
You get to go to Japan?
You get to go to Japan, which is a cool trip. Or you bring Naoya Inoue here, you know. Nonetheless, I think there's always that what-if factor. It's like a Tyson-esque type of feel when Naoya Inoue fights.
Chris, I know you're a big fan of Inoue.
I'm a big fan of Inoue. I'm a big fan of David Benavidez. My heart is with David Benavidez. I really like him. I like his style. I like his persona, I like his attitude. I think he's a gentleman. He's respectful, and he goes out there and he fights like a warrior. But if we're going by my wallet. In terms of entertainment value, I'm going Naoya Inoue, man. And I want to go to Japan. I'm going to spend all the money and go to Japan. I want to see Naoya Inoue.
All right,
Showtime.
Yeah, we got 2 guys who want to go to Tokyo to watch Inoue fight. Showtime. You got 1 ticket. Who are you going to go see, man?
I'll be hopefully not paying for this ticket, but I'll be in LA in August to see Bud fight. I think when you watch a Bud Crawford fight, you get it all. You get the drama, you get the adjustments that you want to see from a fighter. And the thing that he's continuing to do consistently is render his opponents helpless. I'm not including myself in that, by the way, but that's what he does. He really just he takes everything away from his opponents, and then at the end of the fight, you only see him. And that's why I love watching him in the ring, man. He's the fighter that really, he starts off the race at the same pace, and eventually he just takes off and he finished that last 30 meters by himself.
Now, speaking as a child of the 80s who was, I got to say, poorly raised, right? My parents would let me watch anything was on TV. They'd say, hey, whatever's on.
Latchkey kid.
Right, a latchkey kid. So I got to say, Friday the 13th made a big impression on me. I was fortunate enough to call the early fights of Artur Beterbiev. You're right. It's a horror movie that I would love to see again. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.